Daf Yomi, Tractate, Menachos. Menachos. Sounds like a Spanish. Menachos. With a J, you know what I mean? Jalapenos. We're holding in Menachos. Where are we holding now? Menachos Daf Samach, but we're starting the bottom of 59b for context. And Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef says that Rabbi Yochanan says if one places an olive bulk of frankincense, excuse me one moment, an olive bulk of Livona frankincense, and on top of any amount of a meal offering, he has thereby disqualified the meal offering. What is the reason for this halacha? It is written, neither shall he give any frankincense upon it. Leviticus 5:11, which indicates that frankincense disqualifies the meal offering only if there is at least an amount that constitutes giving, which is an olive bulk, when the verse states upon it. Okay, now we're turning to Menachos 60, top of the page, with the words Have ribui achar ribui ve'ein ribui achar ribui el lamayid. This is a case of one amplificatory expression, meaning to expand, in one context of the oil, and in the other in the context of the frankincense. And there's a principle that one amplificatory expression after another serves only to restrict. Consequently, the placement of frankincense on any amount of a meal offering of a sinner disqualifies the meal offering. V'gadamri Amar Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef Boi Rav Yochanan Nosan Mashu Shemen Al Gabi Kizayis Bin Chomahu Mi Ba'inon Simo Kinesino Ilo Teku. And there are those who say there's a different version of the discussion. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef says that Rabbi Yochanan raises a dilemma. If one placed oil of any amount on top of an olive bulk of a meal offering of a sinner, was yalache. Okay, the Gemara clarifies, since the Torah states with regard to oil, he shall place no oil upon it, whereas with regard to frankincense it states, neither shall he give any frankincense upon it. Do we require that the placing of the oil must be like the giving of the frankincense, which must be an olive bulk, or not? No answer is found, and therefore the Gemara states that the dilemma shall stand unresolved. And I actually remember this. We did this a few weeks ago in the Tekus. For those of you who are following along in my Teku series, Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef says, Rav Yochanan raised a dilemma. If one placed a, see here, it was Teku. Let's see here. Must have been back in. I'm thinking back in February. I'm not seeing it. It's not coming up. Let's see here. Mi ba'inan sima kinesina olo. Teku. Maybe I can find it through that. I like to get these stats. See here. That. This was the 244th Teku. And it was Wednesday, February 18th. It was Menachot 60a. Yeah, Wednesday, February 18th. I think that was Rosh Chodesh Adar. That makes sense. Today is the 23rd, so yesterday would have been Wednesday the 22nd. February 18th was Adar 1, so it would be Adar 22nd. Not 20. Yesterday was Adar 22nd. So this was 22 days ago, 23 days ago. Yeah. The 244th Teku. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, there are those who say that, so we did this, okay? That's the 244th Teku. Unresolved, unanswered question in the Babylonian Talmud, to which we have to wait for the Messiah, the son of Joseph, Messiah, the son of David. Okay, let's continue. The Mishnah teaches if one placed oil on the remainder, of a meal offering of a sinner, or a meal offering of jealousy brought by a sota, he does not violate the prohibition. Concerning this, the sages taught in Braita, when the verse states, he shall place no oil upon it, neither shall he give any frankincense upon it, one might have thought that this separation into two distinct prohibitions applies only where two priests perform these actions, one of whom places oil on the meal offering, where the other puts frankincense. Perhaps in this case, each of them is separately liable to receive lashes. But if one priest put both oil and frankincense on a meal offering, one might have thought he receives only one set of lashes. Therefore, the verse states upon it with regard to both the oil and the frankincense, which indicates that the verse is speaking of the meal offering itself and is not referring to the priest who performed the service, since both prohibited actions can be performed on the same meal offering. An individual who does both is liable to receive two sets of lashes. Yachol lo yitin kli al gabi kli b'mnasan pasal tamid lomar aleha b'gufa shel mincha kasuv midaber. Furthermore, one might have thought this verse means one may not even place a vessel containing oil or frankincense on top of a vessel that contains the meal offering, and that if one placed such a vessel on the meal offering, he has thereby disqualified it. Therefore, the verse states upon it, which indicates that the verse is speaking about the meal offering. One may not place oil or frankincense on the meal offering itself, but it is not prohibited to place a vessel containing oil or frankincense upon a vessel that contains the meal offering. Okay? Now we're starting a new Mishnah. Zok the Heilige Mishnah. Means, says the Holy Mishnah. Yesh tunois hagosho vein tunois tenufo. Hagosho tenufa lo hagosho. Tenufa lo hagosho. Lo tenufa lo hagosho. Okay, the Mishnah says there are four categories of meal offerings. Those that require bringing near, that's hagasha, a rite that requires the priests to carry the offering in their hands and bring it near the southwest corner of the altar, but do not require waving. Those that require both bringing near and waving. Those that require waving but not bringing near. And those that require neither waving nor bringing near. Ve'elu tiunois hagasho ve'ein tiunois tenufo minchas asoiles ve'amachvas u'marcheshes ve'achalois u'rikikin minchas kohanim u'minchas kohen Mashiach minchas goyim minchas noshim u'minchas choite. The Mishnah elaborates, and these are the meal offerings that require bringing near but do not require waving. The fine flour meal offering, the meal offering prepared in a pan, the meal offering prepared in a deep pan, the meal offering baked in an oven, which can be brought in the form of loaves or in the form of wafers, the meal offering of priests, the meal offering of the anointed priest, the meal offering of Gentiles, a meal offering brought by women, and the meal offering of a sinner. Rabbi Shimon Omer minchas kohanim minchas kohen Mashiach ein bahem hagosho lefi she'ein bohem k'mitzah. Yechol she'ein bohem k'mitzah, ein bohem nagasha. Rabbi Shimon says the meal offering of priests and the meal offering of the anointed priest do not require bringing of the meal offering near to the altar due to the fact that there is no removal of a handful in their sacrifice, and there is a principle that with regard to any meal offering where there is no removal of a handful in their sacrifice, there is also no bringing near. Okay, that's the Mishnah. Now for the Talmud. Zog the Talmud. Amar Rav Papa kol heichad ditzan asar tinan my kamash milan. The Rav Papa stated a principle with regard to all the Mishnayot in Tractate Menachos. Anywhere that we learned in a Mishnah that one brings a meal offering, we learned that one must bring 10 items of the same type, either loaves or wafers. The Gemara asks, what is Rav Papa teaching us? Lafuki min Rabbi Shimon, Demar, the Gemara explains that the statement of Rav Papa serves to exclude the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, who says one who takes a vow to bring a meal offering baked in an oven must bring 10 items. If he wishes, he may bring 10 loaves or 10 wafers, and if he wishes, he may bring half of them as loaves and the other half as wafers. Rav Papa teaches us that the Tana of the Mishnah maintains that one may not do so. All 10 must be of the same type. From where these matters derived? The Tana Rabbanon ilu nemar ve'veisa asher yaseh me'ele l'Hashem. V'yekriv al kohen gisha hisiyomer en yishetau nagash el kohen bilvad. The Mishnah teaches that the first Tana and Rabbi Shimon disagree about whether the meal offering of priests and the meal offering of the anointed priest require the ritual of bringing near Hagasha. The Gemara asks, from where are these matters derived? The Gemara answers, as the sages taught in Bright, a verse discussing the meal offering prepared in the pan states, and you shall bring the meal offering that is made of these to the Lord, and it shall be drawn near the priest, and he shall bring it to the altar. Leviticus 2, verse 8. If the verse had stated only, and you shall bring that which is made of these to the Lord, and it shall be drawn near to the priest, and he shall bring it near to the altar, omitting the words the meal offering, I would say, I have derived only that the handful that is sacrificed on the altar alone requires bringing near. Mincha minayin, from where is it derived that this halacha applies to entire meal offering? Talmud lomar mincha minchas choite minayin, Talmud lomar es hamincha. The verse states the superfluous term, the meal offering, which indicates that one must bring the entire meal offering to the altar prior to the removal of the handful. The Braita further asks, from where is it derived that this halach applies to the meal offering of a sinner? The verse states the meal offering. And the addition of the definite article serves to include the meal offering of a sinner. V'din hu nemar have mincha choiva v'nemar have mincha nedava. The Gemara raises, the Braita raises a difficulty. Why is a verse necessary to teach that the requirement of bringing near Hagasha applies to the meal offering of a sinner? But this halacha is capable of being derived by a kal v'chomer, a logical inference. The Braita elaborates the procedure of bringing a meal offering that's stated here in the context of the meal of a sinner. I'm returning to 60b now. Minchas choiva v'nemra have minchas nedava, which is an obligatory 160b now, which is an obligatory meal offering, and it is stated there with regard to the deep pan meal offering, which is a voluntary meal offering. Just as a voluntary meal offering requires bringing near, so too an obligatory meal offering, such as the meal offering of a sinner, requires bringing near. Okay, let's continuing on. Ma minchas nidav etunav hagasha. I'm going more into it just because it's part of an idea. Ma minchas nidava tuna hagasha af minchas chayva tuna hagasha ma minchas nidava shekain tuna shemin levayna minchas soita techiach. The Braita rejects this inference. What is notable about a voluntary meal offering? It is notable in that it requires oil and frankincense upon it, rendering its halacha more stringent than that of the meal offering of a sinner, which does not include oil and frankincense. Therefore, it would be logical to suggest that a voluntary meal offering requires bringing near, but the meal offering of a sinner does not. The Braita responds, the meal offering brought by a sota, meaning the meal offering of jealousy, can prove that this factor is not decisive, as it does not include oil and frankincense either, and yet it requires bringing near. Ma le minchas soite shekain tuna tufa minchas nidava techiach. The Braita rejects this claim. One cannot derive the halacha of the meal offering of a sinner from the meal offering brought by a sota, and there is another requirement that applies to the meal offering brought by a sota, but not to the meal offering of a sinner. What is notable about the meal offering brought by a sota is notable in that it requires waving, whereas the meal offering of a sinner does not. The Braita responds, the voluntary meal offering can prove that waving is not the decisive factor, as a voluntary meal offering does not require waving, and yet it requires bringing near. Chazar hadin, and the inference has reverted to its starting point. Okay, we'll go to Rabbi Shimon Omer, and that's it. It's all part of one thing, so I want to keep the flow going. The Chazar hadin lo re'izeh k'rizeh, lo re'izeh k'rizeh, sashav shevehen, shishav l'kemitza, v'shav l'kasha, afani avi minchas choyte, shishav l'hen l'kemitza, teshaveh l'hen l'hagasha. Therefore, the inference has reverted to its starting point, as the aspect of this case is not like the aspect of that case, and the aspect of that case is not like the aspect of this case. The common element is that the voluntary meal offering and the meal offering brought by a sota are equal with regard to the requirement of the removal of a handful, and similarly they are equal with regard to the requirement of bringing near. I will also bring the additional case of the meal offering of a sinner, which is equal to them with regard to the requirement of the removal of a handful, and conclude that it should likewise be equal to them with regard to the requirement of bringing near. Tomer minchas choyte shelo huchshira lavo v'ashir kivani. Talmud lomar esa mincha. The Braita rejects this suggestion. What is notable about the common element of the voluntary meal offering and the meal offering brought by sota? It is notable in that they are suited to come as the meal offering of a wealthy person, just as they are suited to come as the meal offering of a poor person. So shall you say the same with regard to the meal offering of a sinner, which is not suitable to come either as the meal offering of a wealthy person or as the meal offering of a poor person, since a sinner who is not poor does not bring a meal offering, but a different offering. See Leviticus 5:6-11. Therefore, the verse states the meal offering, Leviticus 2:8, with the addition of the definite article to include the meal offering of a sinner in the requirement of bringing near. Okay, we'll stop here, and we'll pick it up next Amud. We did a whole bunch more than we usually do, but that's fine because it's a very big Amud, so that's fine.